the black scarf Tilder. It was Sunday, and everyone was attending the funeral of Mr. Stephen Keller, an old staff member of their company. After the funeral ended, Richard was walking back with his friend Jonas Frank. Just a few steps away, he noticed a gravestone. To his astonishment, his own name was written on it. The dates were incomplete, only his birth year was engraved, while the death year remained blank. Though he returned home, Richard couldn't stop thinking about the gravestone. Driven to know more, he returned to speak with the graveyard's gatekeeper and staff. However, they knew nothing about when or why that specific grave had been dug. Confused and deeply unsettled, Richard paid off the gatekeeper and staff to secure permission to excavate the grave. The following night, while his wife and children were sound asleep, he crept back to the cemetery with a shovel. After several tense minutes of clearing away the soil, he reached the coffin. Bracing himself, he pried it open, only to find it completely empty. Refusing to stop there, Richard pulled the empty coffin out and began digging even deeper. Suddenly, his shovel struck something metallic. Intrigued, he cleared away the remaining dirt with his bare hands, revealing a sturdy metal handle attached to a hidden trapdoor. He lifted it to find a flight of stairs descending into total darkness. When he reached the bottom, his jaw dropped. He had uncovered a massive subterranean basement entirely surrounded by stacks of cold, hard cash, wrapped heavily in bundles of $1,000 bills. As he stood frozen, the echo of heavy footsteps suddenly filled the corridor. Realizing someone was approaching, Richard quickly hid near the entrance. Two men entered carrying large bags brimming with money. From his hiding spot, Richard watched them deposit the cash into a massive safe. Once they left, Richard rushed over to examine the area. Surrounding the safe were shelves and drawers lined with neatly organized documents. Opening one of the drawers, he pulled out a file that made his blood run cold. It was a dossier entirely dedicated to him and his company, containing detailed logs of his bills, taxes, debts, loans, savings, and even his house papers. Panicked, he began sifting through other files, only to find detailed records of his partnerships with various other businesses. While frantically inspecting the papers, something small slipped from the folders and hit the floor. It was a memory chip. He quickly pocketed it. Hearing the clock ticking away, he knew his time was running out. Using a knee-high ladder, he carefully extracted bundles of money from the middle of the stacks, ensuring the theft wouldn't look obvious to the owners. He then climbed back up, locked the trapdoor, reset the coffin, refilled the grave with soil, and hurried home. Deep in the night, while his family slept, Richard inserted the chip into his laptop. A vast grid of secure files appeared. He clicked on a folder cryptically labeled "Money My Honey." Inside were dozens of files titled Locker 96, Locker 97, Locker 98, and so on, packed with PDFs, videos, and financial data. When he clicked on Locker 99, his heart stopped. It held the entire internal ledger of his own company, fully monitored and controlled. Locker 100 contained the funds and profit margins of a rival manufacturing firm. As he dug deeper over the next few hours, he realized these lockers were secret repositories for money extorted from various corporations through threat calls, illegal gambling, embezzlement, and black market corruption. B.Y. Dorn, his wife, Jane Olsen, came downstairs to get a glass of water and prepare breakfast. Seeing him intensely focused on his laptop, she greeted him. Richard closed the screen halfway and replied quietly, "A good morning, babe." Jane smiled and later that afternoon, Richard received a phone call. "Yes, this is Richard Fisher from the SES company," he answered. "Hey, it's me, Arham Karn from Candalunar," the voice on the other end said anxiously. "Oh, hey. How are you doing?" "Not great, to be honest. There's a major problem at my office. We need to meet up." They agreed to meet that evening. At a quiet cafe, a waiter took their order for 2 cold coffees and left them to speak. Arham leaned in closely, his voice a low whisper. A massive amount of our corporate files and papers went missing yesterday. Just before closing, I saw a masked individual lock the main doors from the inside. I never saw him leave. This morning, when I walked into my private chamber, I found this sitting on my desk. Arham handed over a matte black card. Printed sharply on its surface were the words, "The black scarf." Richard stared at the card. The black scarf? Is this some kind of joke? I don't think so, Arham replied grimly. Richard pointed to a strange symbol printed beneath the text. I think this is a syndicate logo. As he stared at the emblem, a chilling flashback hit him. It was the exact same symbol he had seen painted on the walls of the hidden underground basement beneath the graveyard. Hey, I need to show you something, Richard said urgently. They rushed back to Richard's house, where he opened his laptop and revealed everything he had uncovered in the cemetery basement. Arham gasped. Does anyone else know about this? I don't think so, Richard replied. We have to go back there tonight, Arham insisted. If those men are entering with bags of money, there must be another entrance. That night, under the cover of darkness, they snuck back into the graveyard. Near a hidden auxiliary structure, they spotted 2 men slipping through a concealed door. Creeping closely behind them, Richard and Arham found themselves in a vast, wide corridor flanked by rows of numbered shutters. Every single shutter bore the ominous mark of the black scarf. They noticed one of the shutters was left partially open. Pushing it up, they found a room overflowing with currency. Overwhelmed by the sheer sight of wealth, Arham recklessly stepped right into the piles of cash. Wow! Look at all this money! Arham gasped. Hey! What are you doing? Move aside! Richard hissed, before giving in to temptation himself and marveling at the hoard. At the end of the hall stood a heavy central door. Pushing it open, they found a stone staircase leading upwards into yet another corridor. Where on earth is all this money coming from? Richard whispered in awe. Like I told you, it's illegally funneled from hijacked corporations. So tell me, Mr. Professor, Arham whispered back testily, how did anyone manage to build all this without being caught? As they bickered, Richard froze. Fine, but I'll stop talking. There is someone standing right over there, watching us. Is it an agent? Arham whispered, panicking. Why isn't he running or calling for help? The silent figure in the shadows suddenly raised a hand in a slow, eerie greeting. He didn't utter a word. Is he blind? Richard muttered. I think it's a ghost. Arham whimpered. We are literally underneath a graveyard. As the figure stepped into the dim light, the shadows fell away to reveal a face so terrifying that both men bolted in pure terror. They sprinted blindly through the corridors and scrambled out into the night air. I don't even know why I was running. I just ran because you ran. Arham panted as they reached the car. Shut up and drive. Richard yelled. Safe inside the vehicle, Arham caught his breath. What do we do now? Do we call the cops? Are you stupid? Richard snapped. What are we going to tell them? That we broke into a secret underground vault beneath an unauthorized grave? I have a better idea. I know someone we can trust. The next morning, Richard brought Arham to a secure location.